Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. We're going to be working on something a little different today. This is a 72-inch Simplicity Zero Turn Mower. You guys could see it's got a 27 horsepower commercial grade Briggs and Stratton. This is 2-cylinder, obviously air cooled, and it's got a few things wrong with it. First of all, somebody left the key on, so the battery died. So I peaked up the battery, and now we're going to do some diagnostics on it. Let me show you what it sounds like, first of all. Now, even though the plugs are out, it doesn't sound like it's turning anything, and if you put your finger in the hole where the plug is, it doesn't feel like it has any compression. That's not a good sign. So I wiped off the dipstick and pulling it out, I mean, it's a little low, not crazy low, and the oil looks clean. That's a good sign. So I'm thinking the next thing I'm going to do is, just for laugh, pull these valve covers. Then I'm going to have, then I'll try a compression check. I just want to pull a valve cover because it's easy enough to do. See if the valves are opening and closing. So to get the valve cover off, easy enough to do, right? 10 millimeters. There are 4 of these. Right, you just spin them on out and life is good. I don't know, you guys holding your breath to see what we find? So this has one of those glue-on valve covers. That was a bit of a bear to get off, but anyway, we did manage to get it off. And when you turn the key, this is what the valves do. Whole lot of nothing. That's not a good sign. So it's kind of like, okay, what's broke? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to slip, you know, this is soft, it's wire. I'm just going to slip it into the cylinder here through the spark plug hole. And right, it is pushed in and it's touching the bottom of the cylinder. And obviously when I hit the key, if the crank is turning, this should start bouncing. I got no movement at all. Does it just only have a broken keyway to the flywheel? So the flywheel's spinning, right? The starter's turning the flywheel and it's just spinning free. This thing went to a shop that supposedly knew what they were doing, and they kicked it back saying, oh, you blew your engine, it's dead. But given that it has less than 130 hours on it, what is that, like less than 3 oil changes theoretically, the motor shouldn't be dead, right? I mean, this is a commercial unit. That 129 hours, if it was in commercial business, that's only 2 weeks worth of work for this thing. I think I'm going to pull this cover off next and see what's going on up on top. So I'm showing you the top of the engine, and I took the safety shields off, and I want to make it so that you can see the crank bolt. And if you look at the crank bolt, right, you can kind of see the keyway is off this way. So when I turn the key, you can see now it's off this way. So the crank is turning, but it doesn't appear as if the cam is turning or the pistons are going up and down. Okay, what you're looking at is the bottom of the motor, the crank, right here. You can see the crank. And when I turn the key, you guys could see that the crank is turning on the bottom. So we have the crank turning up here, right? But you don't hear anything. I mean, it just turns easily. And the crank's turning on the bottom, but your valves are not moving, and it doesn't appear as if the pistons are moving. There's something in the world known as an engine hand grenading, and I think that's what happened internal to here. I think it might have thrown both rods. As a matter of fact, let's check that. So you guys could see I put a wire in the spark plug hole, and I'm just going to turn this. And yep, I'm able, it pushes the wire out. I don't want to get it stuck in there. So this piston's going up and down. I can do a compression test on it. That'll tell me if the valves are doing anything. Now I got the throttle wide open, right? I got the choke wide opened. We got the compression tester set up, and the number is a gigantic 0. So what do we know? We know that the crank is continuous all the way through. Obviously the starter is turning the flywheel and turning the crank. We know this piston is not moving at all, that these valves are not moving at all, and it appears as if we have 0 compression on the other side, even though the piston is moving up and down. So it appears as if this thing threw a rod, and the rod took out the camshaft, or the camshaft gear got ripped up, or something. You know, the way this thing was cutting grass, it was also tilted like this, which means that piston probably would have been the one most starved for oil while the grass was being cut. So there we have it. I think this engine basically hand grenaded when the piston broke loose. The collateral damage probably took out the cam. Also, the way these valves are kind of stuck, looks like they're both wide open. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't valve damage on this side, right? Because the reason why they would be pushed it open, and then perhaps the piston clipped them and bent the valves over once it lost timing, and especially turning it over, right? And basically the cam had at least one valve open on that side, and then this side too, probably the valves got hit. So what would it take to bring this engine back to life? If I were sitting here and I was quoting shop time to get this engine on and off, to completely tear it down, and to do a full inventory of what it needs, you're probably looking at a major part of a day, and call it a second day to put it all back together again. Even if you're paying somebody, I don't know, 25 bucks an hour, you'd be looking at 400 bucks worth of labor for that. Then in parts, the parts for these things do not go cheap. If I had to guess, you need a cam, or cam gear. You might need a pair of heads. You need a piston. You might need a crank, right? I think suddenly the numbers are going to work their way up to be crazy big numbers. Like, it probably doesn't pay to fix this engine. That hurts. Once again, this thing is a few years old, but there's just less than 130 hours on it. What are you going to do? Maybe one could find one that fell off a truck and get an engine from it that way, right? If it fell off a truck or a trailer, the frame's bent, and somebody's willing to let the whole thing go for $1,000 or whatever, then you can get a whole load of parts. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for dropping by to watch this video. Please remember, feet down, heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.